Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joe Pisapia, and it's a fun Friday filled with props. That's right. Every single Friday, myself, Andrew Erickson, and the Welsh sit here, talk about the props you need to be betting on for this week, week 2 in the NFL. Already off to a fun start. Buffalo looked very good there, so we'll see if the rest of the teams in the NFL can put up some points on the board. And gentlemen, obviously, we're here on the Betting Pros YouTube channel. If you haven't already, subscribe, drop your comments below, ring the bell till it goes ding so you don't miss a piece of the action here. And again, shout out to all of you who've been with us all week long. We see the numbers. We love you. We made you some money on Thursday Night Football. Now it's time to make some money on Sunday and Monday as well. Don't forget also to download the Betting Pros app, start betting smarter, not harder, and maximize your prop betting success with the Betting Pros Prop Bet Cheat Sheet. A lot of the information we're going to give you here today, a lot of it stems from that cheat sheet that's out there. You take the fantasy projections against the lines and find the best houses on the best numbers. And guess what? You can instantly compare all the sportsbook lines and make the best bet you could possibly imagine every single time. That's what we're trying to do here with the tools of Betting Pros. So customize your bets by filtering the props by matchup, by odds, by bet type. All of it, we've got it. And that way you ensure you're going to be the most profitable you possibly can every single Sunday. You get the recommendations and you can track the winning trends with ease over on our comprehensive Betting Pros tool with the prop bet cheat sheet. So take your sports betting to the next level at bettingpros.com/props, or again, just download the app and get to the sports betting app right now of Betting Pros. All right, gentlemen, it's time to put our hands in the dirt for another week of prop betting. Welsh, it's time to shake the dust off a little bit. I know week 1 kicked you around a little bit. That's okay.
Fade.
Okay.
You remember this story? Erickson, have I told you this story last week? We could have made it a respectable day. Aaron Jones stopped catching passes, even though he had 2 in the first half. Daniel Jones had 15 yards in the second quarter, didn't run one more time. How did we make it an almost respectable day? Little old Rico Dowdle, 26.5 was that rushing yard mark. Got to 28. We said, all right, we'll be okay. Last carry of the game, -2 yards on a shotgun, lose the prop. Absolutely. I was great on my touchdown calls. Hat tip to Erickson. Erickson was the big play, 4-1 last week. Absolute monster on the props. I was garbage. So as you said, dust it off, get it easier this week, get back in.
Well, Welsh, I think the best practice now is just bet the over every single week on Daniel Jones interceptions. I think you just keep pounding that table. No matter what you do, just look for that one. There's a lot of good stuff on the board today, though. And it's always hard week 1, 2. You know, things are a little wacky. There's always some chaos in the market. But now that the dust is settled, I think we have at least some idea of what we're looking at for week 2. So where do you want to kick things off?
All right, I'm going to kick it off. Got, playing the chalky plays sometimes versus some of the fun ones. Going back to a little bit of the guys we trust after week 1, there's some confidence on this level. This is probably my favorite of the week. I know you're on it in some capacity. Bogman was on it. This is kind of a all-around one. We're going to Mike Evans receiving yards, which I believe I got at 67.5. I believe it might be up at 68.5. Last week, Evans had 6 targets. He did it on the fantasy side, obviously more than the volume with the touchdowns. But this week with the Lions, it should prevent more of a shootout style, which I really like. Evans, he's got a favorable corner matchup, and according to Fantasy Points data, which, by the way, just hat tip to them again for all of their great stuff, he's got the 4th highest expected fantasy points per route run this week. Then on the coverage side, also with Fantasy Points data, they have given him a 10% plus boost as far as points per route run. And for context, this is the 2nd highest corner percentage of any number 1 wide receiver for this week. George Pickens is actually number 1. Also, we'll take a look a little bit further. Looking at last week, Evans had 83 air yards, more than his actual output, and had an over 50% air yard share. So obviously, dumbing it down again, this tells us big plays are on the targets for him, which is a duh. Lastly, Fantasy Pros projections, we've got him at 72 yards, so there's still a little bit of wiggle room. He's going to get targets. It's a great matchup. It's an under 70 number. I'd still play it 270. Love Mike Evans, probably even to play it up to 100, but we're going to play it safe after being garbage last week. So Mike Evans receiving yards, it's like my favorite.
It's a fun game this week, and I've been hyping up Baker Mayfield after watching him play last week and kind of being his defender all offseason, which is a weird place to be. I think Amon-Ra is going to have a great game in that one as well. You can get plus money on both Amon-Ra and Evans touchdowns. More on that later in the show when we do our touchdown calls. But looking at that secondary that's beat up a bit for Tampa, it's a great opportunity here for Jameson Williams, for Amon-Ra. It's going to be a fun game. You're in on this game too, Erickson. So let's talk about what path you're taking to make some money in week 2.
Yeah, I'm just going to take some low-hanging fruit in a game with a 50.5 point total in a dome. Coors Field, baby, of the NFL. Ford Field. So
Here
Baker Mayfield
goes.
over 260.5 passing yards. He's been over this in 6 of his last 8 games played. So all the reasons why we like Mike Evans, all the reasons why we think there's going to be a ton of points in this game. The Lions are a run funnel defense. And the Buccaneers can't run the football, especially if they're still giving it to Rachaad White, who's been shown to still be inefficient on the ground, but great through the air. So why bother running the ball anyway? Just throw it because they're going to be giving up points on their end. So Baker Mayfield, I think, again, playing it up to alternate 300 passing yards. I'll just take this 260.5 and I'll love my winnings there.
All right, let's move on to the next one here. And actually, both of you have some stock in the Ravens-Raiders game. I think the Ravens are going to pound them into submission at home. I think you're going to see a lot of Derrick Henry in this game. But Welsh, you're looking at some Brock Bowers in this one. The reception total is 3.5, and you're going over. Let's talk about that one. A tough start to the year for Gardner Minshew. Also a tough assignment in week 2. So how do we get there? I guess that's the question.
Well, I mean, last week we got there with Brock Bowers getting 8 targets. He was one of the more efficient of the tight ends in a really bad tight end week. And I think you kind of said it though. Like one of the things I've kind of gone back and forth with people about, specifically like Bogman, who loves Bowers, but was focused on the Ravens side, was like, oh, well, they completely shut down Mark Andrews with that double coverage of too high. And then it went to likely. My argument has been, Brock Bowers is not going to get the Mark Andrews treatment in this game. If anyone's going to get the Mark Andrews treatment, it'll be Devontae Adams. And we saw how likely beat them up. And that would be more of the Bowers role. Plus, we've seen Bowers likely working out of the slot a bunch. He had 8 targets last week. He had the 8th most routes run as far as tight ends. And he had the 3rd highest target share among tight ends and the 2nd highest first read percentage among tight ends. I don't know what else to tell you. Isaiah Likely, by the way, was that other guy. Isaiah Likely had this huge breakout. Bowers did not have that in play. Also, they're going to be playing from behind. They're going to get destroyed by the Ravens. So they're going to be passing the ball a lot. I think this is low-hanging fruit. This is 3.5 receptions, 8 targets last week. He was one of the best first read tight ends. I love this number. Receptions have me a little bit now, wanting to play yards. Receptions can be finicky and hard to project at some points. But as far as what the target share of what Bowers got in week 1 and should get this week, I love this one. So Brock Bowers over 3.5 receptions.
You two with your low-hanging fruit. What are we going to open up a smoothie shop here? Jeez,
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Oh my God. It's
You
farmer's market.
You put it in my head.
Hey, everybody. Farmer's market time.
So what are
Just
your
once,
favorite
I wish
fruits,
one of
right?
you would. And Welsh, you're tall. You're like 6'4". Could you just
I can
reach
help
for
us
the
out.
tall, the high-hanging fruit just once?
I
by
could.
the
Yeah,
way,
like those are the
What
best.
is
Those are the
what
best.
is the high-hanging fruit?
I don't know. Bananas?
Well, like
Like you're all
oranges. If
high
you ever
on
seen
the-
like
Coconuts.
an orange.
Those are
Oh
fine.
yeah,
Coconuts, that-
Those
Yeah,
can
yeah,
kill you. They fall on your head.
Coconut
Gotta watch out.
can kill a man.
Coconuts. Those can kill you. PSA.
It sounds like one of those bad news things. Can coconuts kill you? Find out at 11. By the way, Brock Bowers, you know what the anytime touchdown score number is for him this week? You want to take a guess off the top of your head?
I believe it's like plus 280. It might be 340.
Higher, Bob. It's plus 500 on FanDuel right now.
Is it? I
Just saying.
personally, I'm gonna play that. I don't know if the Raiders are going to score a lot of touchdowns, but I just like the target equity is going to.
And I don't mean first time. I mean just touchdown score. Brock Bowers plus 500. I'm looking at it right now as of recording this Friday morning. For him to get the first touchdown plus 2,700 on the return, and I believe it was the last touchdowns plus 1,700. So.
Are you guys big first? I'm not a big first touchdown guy, but
Erickson-
I know it's wildly
Erickson
popular.
loves
Dude,
it.
did you-
Erickson
James Cook,
can't get
baby.
up with the first touchdown.
Dude, we
can't
talked
believe
about
you-
it on the Discord.
And you
remember,
cashed all
Welsh?
those James Cook things yesterday. That's so obnoxious because the guy never gets touchdowns, and then yesterday he got a gazillion.
Dude, because I knew Josh Allen had the Band-Aid on his friggin' hand. I knew they weren't going to give it to him. I didn't know
What
he
it
was
is,
going to throw a touchdown.
first touchdowns to me are like no run first innings, Nerfies in baseball. Like it's just like the data isn't great for it, but it's like, I mean, you don't get big numbers with Nerfies.
That's
you do with
that's
this.
the main difference is the
Right,
payout, right?
Yeah. You
I
get
just
like
the
negative
satisfaction
money
in
on
a
Nerfies.
primetime game. I go to I'm like doing the dishes while it's on, and like touchdown. I'm like, who was it? It's James Cook. Ah!
And then Erickson goes right to bed at
Yes.
8:45.
Yes.
Yeah,
Also, I mean,
sleepy
Donald,
Andrew.
it's honestly Donald Parham's fault last year.
Oh,
It
it
was
totally
one bet
ruined
I
you. He
made,
did it once,
and then
and
I
he
got
made
hooked.
like $1,000, and then that was it. Like
Erickson's just
he
dreaming
gained all
of
back.
fruits in bed after it. Parnum fruits and just thinking of all his fruits he can pick.
All right, let's get back to this game here for your second pick because you're in on Minshew for this one. So obviously, game script we're thinking is from behind if you're the Raiders this week. So how does that equate to Gardner Minshew, Erickson?
Yeah, I'm hand holding all my picks with Welsh. She likes the receivers. I like the quarterback. So
Love
we're
it.
in this
Adorable.
together because I gotta help him out. I was 4-1 last week. I gotta throw
Help
Welsh a
me
bone
out.
here. So Minshew over 19.5 completions. Looking at last week, he completed 25 passes for 257 yards in week 1. His projection in the BP is 21.4, ahead of that 19.5 completions line. The Raiders on offense just want to distribute the ball to their playmakers. His average depth of target last week was 4.7. That was the lowest in the NFL. Minshew's not dropping back to throw bombs down the field. He's just looking to get completions. So that's going to accumulate, especially with a team that is trailing in this game, like we all predict. You look at the Ravens, especially when they play at home. Yes, they're going to run the football, but they're going to give up a lot of completions as well because they know that Minshew's not going to try to attack them over the top. So I think the Raiders, again, they posted the 5th highest pass rate over expectation in week 1. I think they're going to be trailing in this game. The Ravens are also without potentially Nate Wiggins, who's dealing with an injury, their first-round rookie cornerback. So, again, there's just so many weapons on the Raiders side that he can distribute the ball to any of them, whether it's Bowers, Adams, Jacoby Myers, the running backs, Michael Mayer. So I like Minshew a lot in this spot. And again, don't forget about Minshew, right? In this spot, last year for the Indianapolis Colts, he went in to Baltimore, came away with the overtime victory. So I think that he's going to be chucking through all 4 quarters.
Interesting too, because the number is very high. 32.5 for his passing attempts is the number in most spots there. So that's a pretty high number there. So 19.5 completions. We'll see. We'll see if he can get there. Of course, obviously, you're watching the shows here, but if you want to get in there, ask more questions of some of the experts, or just see what everybody else is in on, we have an amazing community at bettingpros.com/chat. That's our Discord. It's free to join. Over 30,000 members strong already. We are unbelievable. Matt Peral does a fantastic job too. He posts all his bets. So you can get in touch with Matt there directly, which is really cool there, and a lot of us as well. So make sure if you haven't already, you join our Discord. Again, it's free, bettingpros.com/chat. And there you can also be in a lot of other channels too. We have a lot of fun in that betting Discord, and it's a great way to get information and be part of our community. So we're all betting. Remember, we're a team. We're betting against the books. It's us versus them. Come join us. That's my selling point. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm Joe Pisapia, and I approve this message. Let's get to the next pick here on the board. Welsh, I'm very happy with your 49ers this week. They won me a lot of money and some extra bonus money from Andrew, which was great. You are going to a 49er this week. I'm curious as to where and why. So set it up for us, your third pick for week 2.
We're going to go back to some receptions. We're going to go with Brandon Aiyuk, who did have 5 targets last week, which I do like, even though he wasn't built up and he was unready and he dropped the pass and blah, blah, blah. Full weekend practice, full set with everybody off of a game day. I think we should expect a return to normal. Going back to that fantasy points data, they're giving his matchup against the Vikings the 3rd highest expected fantasy points per route run of all wide receivers in week 2. He's also given the 4th best wide receiver cornerback matchup according to PFF, and only one of 4 in the excellent territory they have. And then if you want to throw it in, we can go into the projection market where PFF has him beating this by a full reception, as does our own Fantasy Pros projections at 4.5. So I like Brandon Aiyuk to get re-involved in the offense. I would also say that there were a lot of positive comments that Shanahan was talking about, that they were very happy with what it looked like, where he was at. I do think there is a chance the Vikings could kind of keep in this one a little bit more. But, off of the low snap count, getting 5 targets, we're probably going to get back into that 6-7 range. Aiyuk is going to bring him down. I need 4 to cash. So Brandon Aiyuk receptions. I might even get funky with it and do a little Bowers and Aiyuk reception combo together just to have funsies and get some numbers. But because this one is like tiny bit more juiced, and I would not be shocked if it moved to 4 by game day, but I'm taking it down and I'm homering out a little bit with Brandon Aiyuk.
I made money last week on the Purdy under too, which is something I was in on from the get-go against the Jets defense. And then when McCaffrey was out, that was like a no-brainer. It's 241.5. Do you have a lean on that one, Welsh? I'm just curious because I think it's a really good number. But again, without McCaffrey and all that yak that he provides, I struggle with not looking to the under again for 2 weeks in a row. Although I do think potentially the Minnesota Vikings offense can put up more of a fight, which means he would possibly be not just handing the ball off to Jordan Mason, a little bit more aggressive potentially, as it might be a little bit more back and forth this week. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you nailed it right there. Like that's where my lean would be as well. Like if the Vikings have a good pass rush, if the pass rush doesn't get to Purdy and I thought about his rushing yard prop, by the way, it's 7.5. Like he can get this in 1. If they don't get to Purdy and he's got time, his playmakers are going to make big plays. And if this turns into the Jets, you know exactly how this is going to turn out. 28 carries for Jordan Mason. If the game is closer, it's just a really good matchup for them to sling the ball. The Niners defense looked pretty solid. Their secondary is still susceptible. And the only really big play they have is Justin Jefferson. So the irony is like they have a lot of underneath stuff, which actually doesn't really work well for them against the 49ers, whether they're trying to go to Chandler or Aaron Jones. That's really not the play against the 49ers with their great tacklers like Fred Warner. So I don't know. I say all of this to say, I suppose I lean a little bit on the over on that, probably staying away, to be honest.
All right. This next one you've got, Erickson, is my favorite bet of the week, outside of Daniel Jones, of course. I love this one. I've seen enough of this guy to be in on this, and I got a better number than you did on this. But let's talk about Malik Willis, the likely starter for the Green Bay Packers this week. So where are you going for this bet here in week 2?
Of course, the top bet of the week is an under, of course. Malik Willis, under 168.5 passing yards. I know you said you got 169.5 passing yards. Again,
I'll take every yard I can get.
Shop the best line. That's what BP's for. That's what we got you guys covered. So Malik Willis is not a pocket passer. He is more of a running back than quarterback. He got to the Packers at the end of August. He doesn't know this offense.
No.
So he has no chemistry with any of these receivers. Doesn't know the offense. Yes, he's playing at home. He has one of the highest pressure to sack rates that we've seen over the past 3 years. He had 2 dropbacks in that game. He got sacked on one of them already. He couldn't even get off the Hail Mary. So I know he has a cannon arm, and that is the only way this, honestly, I could see this bet failing. Is he just launches one and one of the Packers receivers comes down with it. But to get to 100,
I'm going to say that happens and he still goes under.
It's not going to happen on one play, by the way. Yeah, it's not going to happen on one play. You're making it sound like that's going to be the over.
So for me, just looking at the way this Packers offense, even last year, right? So comparing it to Jordan Love in his first year as the full-time starter. So Jordan Love in his first 6 starts, he threw for under 182 yards in half of his starts. So just from looking at this offense systematically, it's just not going to create a ton of yardage. They're going to be super conservative playing the Colts. I think the game plan is we just need to make Anthony Richardson make mistakes. That's what we need. We need our quarterback to make less mistakes than their quarterback, and that's how we win this game, because they're not going to win this game on the back of Malik Willis's hands or on the back of his arm. So if anything, he'll be running around. He'll be trying to make plays with his legs. I just don't see him throwing the ball with any type of accuracy. So I'm taking the under.
Yeah, I think the projection is bad on this one. I do. The projection I see on BP is 191.2.
I'm glad you looked. I was about to look there.
Yeah. I think because that's screaming that we're wrong and Vegas is wrong. And I just think that's
who's projected under him. Do you have it up? I'm curious. What quarterbacks are projected for less passing?
I don't have a whole grouping on there, but it's definitely one of the lowest ones. Like it's got to be him.
Will Levis is probably
maybe Will Levis.
Will Levis. Probably.
Can I get a head-to-head? Will Levis.
All right, Welsh. The next guy on our list is actually one of Andrew Erickson's favorite things, but you snagged him in this show. It's Brian Thomas, who certainly showed you that he could be in line for a bigger season maybe than some people, and by some people I mean me, might have thought. So let's talk about him and how we want to approach him this week.
Yeah, I mean, what's so nice, and I think this is where Erickson's coming from, is Brian Thomas just jumped right back into the Calvin Ridley role from last year. And that was, I think, what they were looking for. Kirk was able to stay the same. Ingram was able to stay the same. And Thomas ended up and looks like he's going to be that big play guy. He averaged 11.75 yards per target last week in week 1. we saw a shared target percentage between Kirk, Ingram, and him, which I think is really key. And that's what's also leading me to this receiving yard marker. And the number we're looking at, I believe it might have bumped up to 38.5. I got it at 36.5 for Brian Thomas receiving yards over. He also last week, a deep threat option, an 11 ADOT, was actually a little bit lower, by the way, than Kirk, but he's going to be the guy. The Browns defense, it's a better matchup, but it's a lower number on the big play wide receiver for the Jags, and that's what's so exciting. He could get this on one catch. You can theorize and have fun with that, but we also know like he's going to get a few targets. Pros projections, we have him at 50 yards receiving. I compared it against PFF. That also is over 46.5. So when I got it, there was a 10 plus yard discrepancy. There's still going against pros projections. There's still a 10-yard play discrepancy. So there's a lot of different ways that you can play it. If the Jaguars are successful, yes, you could have, I think Ingram's got to get more involved, but Brian Thomas won't not see it. And if they're playing from behind against that defense, Brian Thomas is the one that's going to break and be that big play guy. So, I love the target share between these three players. I think that was really telling in week one. I do acknowledge that maybe like Kirk and Ingram tapering back a little bit is what skews this, but it's just such a low number that I really think it is worth it for Brian Thomas. Under 40 yards, I think is crazy. So we're going to go with the receiving yard total over.
One thing you can always count on from Amari Cooper is it's going to be good some weeks and bad some other weeks. Andrew Erickson, I looked at this number of 57.5 that's on Amari Cooper this week. Last year, he went over this number 9 times and under this number 8 times. So there you go. It's a coin flip. The question is, which side of the coin are you playing this week? Andrew, is it the bounce back week for Amari Cooper?
So to be clear, he went over this number 9 times. He went over 77 receiving yards 9 times because it's the boomer.
Oh yeah, when he goes over it, he goes over it.
You're betting the alt line here, baby. You're going over 70 receiving yards because.
Well, that being said, would there be a ladder bet in this one for you, where you're like, hey, if Cooper's going to do it, it's going to go over? Or
you're going to ladder bet with Deshaun Watson at quarterback? Let's hear it.
Bring myself to do that. I can't.
So no, I'm not doing that because I do want to, and I love the Brian Thomas call. One thing I wanted to point out, or actually 2 things. So all of his production came in the first half. He had no targets in the second half of the game because Jacksonville just stopped throwing the ball, and that's why they lost the game. And the second thing is he was being shadowed by Jalen Ramsey in his first game as a rookie. So Brian Thomas to the moon. The other thing with this particular matchup, it is expected to rain in Jacksonville. So that is something to keep in mind. I think that makes... Again, this isn't, you need to bench all your receivers. They can't be productive. Well, this is when you get high variance in terms of the receiving yardage, because what happens if a defensive player falls down? Oh, then you have an 80-yard touchdown, right? So I would just kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at this specific game. But for me, Amari Cooper, this is when he has his big games, when everyone least expects it. 9 targets last week, 2 catches for 16 yards. Again, we talked about the boomer bust mantra of Amari Cooper. Went over 77 receiving yards in 9 of his games, and he was held under 34 in all the other games. So he doesn't exist in this 54 receiving yards range.
I got to say, man, I feel you. Like, I feel like it's a good bet. But man, the Deshaun Watson tape is not good.
But
he looks completely
this is what I mean.
Lost.
A broken clock is right twice a day, and that's what I'm betting on here with Deshaun Watson.
But how fast do the dials turn, though? That's the problem with Deshaun Watson. When is that clock going to get there?
And the other thing too, the Jaguars also put one of their starting cornerbacks, Tyson Campbell, on injured reserve. So I think that they're very undermanned, and I think Cooper's going to get enough targets, enough air yards. Again, if you guys have guys slipping, falling down, if Deshaun Watson throws the ball deep 5 times, I just need Cooper to come down with 1, and he can get over this number here. So I'm in on Amari Cooper this week, and I think we should see some fireworks even in a rainy Jacksonville game.
Okay, next here and final prop before we get to the touchdown calls. Let's go for a tight end here, Welsh. Let's branch out a little bit. Who do you have that could have a big week in week 2?
Yeah, I'm kind of tight end out. This is my second tight end prop this week. And we are going to go back to the GOAT, Trey McBride. We are going with the receiving yards over. 49.5 was the number that we were looking at this morning. Despite the results, he still had the highest routes run per drop back of any tight end at over 80% last week. He had the second highest target percentage and air yard percentage among tight ends, only to Likely, and the 5th highest first read percentage among tight ends at over 23%. We do know that it is not Kyler Murray's job to get the ball to Marvin Harrison, But the job that he does do,
clear,
he's made that very clear. But we know it's going to go to Trey McBride. They're going to get him more involved in this offense. The team wins when he's more involved, and an almost quarter of the percentage of the time for a tight end to be the first read is a huge positive number. And this is low. This is low for him. It's 49.5 projected numbers. I believe this is the pros number, 59.5. So again, this is looking for like projection discrepancies. There's a 10-yard gap to Kyler Murray's number one target in a game that could get the ball in the air a decent amount. I'm in on Trey McBride. I think this is a low enough number. I'm not saying that like the tight end numbers get super crazy, but you push into those high 60s or whatever for the Kelseys and Laportas. Sometimes you just want to play off of it. This was an under 50 or low 50 number for the number one target on the Cardinals. And I know the Rams offensive line is all banged up, but if they are and they have the lead by slinging the ball, Cardinals are going to be doing it right back. If not, we do know that they're going to keep the ball on the ground with James Conner, but that's going to probably have some more lower variant stuff for Trey McBride to move first down. So I just really like this one again for him to get going. This is a bounce back week, I think, for tight end. It's pretty hard for it not to be. Like every tight end was garbage last week. There were two. This will be the big, and Jonnu Smith was even decent on Thursday night. This will be the tight end bounce back week where we're not having that big freak out.
Some good numbers on him too. You're getting plus money on the 5.5 receptions, and you're also getting plus 170 anytime touchdown for McBride.
Yeah.
There. So a lot of fun bets if you think McBride just goes off this week. I am of the Marvin Harrison giant correction game, by the way. Just putting that out there. Kyler Murray, it is your job to find Marvin Harrison. That's how you're going to win games, especially when he's open. Find him then. Erickson, I want to find you for one more prop here. Let's go back to the Ravens game. What do you have?
Ending where we started, Lamar Jackson under 29.5 passing attempts. So last year, Lamar Jackson attempted 30 passing attempts 3 times at home. One was in the AFC Championship game, and the other 2 games went to overtime. I don't see this Las Vegas matchup being anywhere close to what those other matchups were. This seems pretty simple to me. Feed Derrick Henry. Don't need to throw the ball with Lamar Jackson. Again, talked about this with the Worm on all the shows on Fantasy Pros this week. You can't overtake from a Ravens-Chiefs matchup. They play the Chiefs differently than every other team. So I just think this is game plan simple. They're going to feed Derrick Henry. And I think that the Raiders defense, again, they got blown up by the Chargers last week, but it was a lot of explosive plays. They only allowed 11 first downs against the Los Angeles Chargers. So I just don't think that this is a game script where Lamar Jackson's going to be dropping back to throw 30 times. Like I said, it really ever happens at home except in very special circumstances against the Chiefs and in games that went overtime. So I think this one's easy, under 29.5 passing attempts.
Did you call him the Worm, by the way? Did you call Ryan the Worm?
I heard that's that. What he's Worm. That's what
no, but you called him the Worm.
Oh, well,
that's fine.
He won't listen.
I thought I was the only.
He'll never know.
I didn't know you guys were sharing thes with other people. I thought it was the Welsh.
Just the Welsh.
Yeah. Well, maybe it was a Freudian slip because the Welsh is here. So
kind of my tag team partner, Erickson, too. This is like we have 3 shows a week together. So we guys. I just want to be the only the. The only the in your life is what I'm saying. I love this one, by the way. I think this one is super sneaky because I'm all on Derrick Henry. If Derrick Henry wasn't minus 180 for a touchdown, anytime touchdown, I would probably play it. Maybe I'll play it with something else. I'm playing Derrick Henry in our touchdown contest, by the way, which we have an awesome touchdown contest here on Fantasy Pros where you do the flex, running back, wide receiver, tight end. I wish I had the link in my brain that I could tell you guys right now, but come over to the Discord. We have the whole sheet that you can fill out. You can play it. It's super fun. I'm playing Derrick Henry this week because I think the touchdown call is locked in. And like you said, I don't think they're going to be slinging the ball because I don't think they're going to be behind in any capacity. And it's going to be little Justice Hill, big old Derrick Henry, and a little bit of Lamar Jackson. I would probably play this at 25 or 26 pass attempts, Erickson. So I like it.
All right, it's week 2, everybody. It's time to make some touchdown calls, and I'll kick us off here. I'm going right to the Cincinnati-Kansas City game, and I'm going to go with Isiah Pacheco. Now, it's heavy juice there, minus 125, but I still think that the Chiefs handle their business here. I know Cincinnati's been talking trash. I don't like that they were talking trash, especially about Xavier Worthy, too. Makes me want to bet that one. All that. He's fast, but he runs in a straight line stuff. Bro, don't poke the bear. What are you doing? Stop doing that stuff. But regardless, what I saw last week was a deficiency with the Bengals stopping the run with the New England Patriots. I think that's going to be a problem in this game too. I think they're going to have Isiah Pacheco get his, and I do think you're going to see him again at the goal line, just like last week for 2 weeks in a row, getting in the end zone. So again, minus 125, best way to make money on this, maybe just pair it with the money line for the Kansas City Chiefs too. That's a nice way to do it. And I was so close last week, boys. I flew too close to the sun. I got that duo parlay with the touchdowns. Didn't get that, but I had the 3 out of the 4, the big one. Again, Bijan snuffed me, but I had 3 of the 4 right last week with Richardson, Tyreek Hill, and Ken Walker. So I'm sorry I failed you all, but this week we're back on track. I don't think I will. Erickson, let's start with you. Give me a touchdown call for week 2. Who do you have?
Oh, mine are super gross this week. 2 slot receivers on bad offenses. So buckle up, baby. But like the odds. So Wan'Dale Robinson, plus 290. The Commanders' defense is horrible. I do expect the Giants to be able to score points in this game despite their ineptitude on offense. Last week, Wan'Dale Robinson, 3 red zone targets. He was the guy they were looking for. He also had 12 targets overall. So I'm going to chase the points I expect to see from the Giants, and I think Wan'Dale finds the end zone. And my other guy is Devaughn Vele, a name that you're probably not familiar with because I didn't know he existed till a couple weeks ago. So he is a rookie from the Denver Broncos. He is 27 years old. Yes, he's a rookie receiver who's 27 years old. So he's got that experience that Sean Payton just covets. And so he's getting this so much playing time as it is as a rookie. You look at what he did last week. He actually caught all 8 of his targets for a whopping 39 yards. The reason I'm looking at Vele, and in particular, and it actually came up in the Betting Pros first touchdown, anytime touchdown analysis, one of the research charts that I like to look at when I'm looking at touchdown odds. He had the best odds in terms of what your bang for your buck is. He's plus 750. And when you look at the matchup against the Steelers are the number 1 slot funnel defense. Raymond McLeod led the Falcons in receiving last week, not because he's the number 1 receiver. It's because he was playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if Denver gets anywhere near the red zone against the Steelers, again, big if, I think it's going to be Devaughn Vele that ends up scoring. So plus 750, give me Devaughn Vele.
All right. That was a fun one, Erickson. I hope it hits for your sake, because if it doesn't, I'm going to pound that Vele and make a cutlet out of it.
Can you imagine picking the Daniel Jones and Bo Nix to be your touchdown guy?
Why do you hate life? Why do you hate yourself? What are you doing?
Oh, I'm going to be throwing in the Slack chat. Imagine not betting on Bo Nix or Daniel Jones wide receiver to score a touchdown.
You can see how good of a week Erickson just had because he's willing to back Daniel Jones and Bo Nix off of all profit.
I want to remind you of the story of Icarus, who flew close to the sun.
Dude, so much low-hanging fruit. These wings are close to the sun. Oh, I love this show.
All right. Welsh, give us a couple of touchdown calls for week 2, and then I'll wrap us up with one more.
Yeah, by the way, your 2 are 2 of my favorites. I would probably you already said the Pacheco one.
Well, you can put the 2 my 2 favorites together too. Although I'm still bitter about that Bijan thing, but I got to get over it.
Yeah, I would probably put Pacheco and Derrick Henry together. That's
a lock one too. I've bet Henry separately too. The juice is hard on him too, but you got to pair it with, the money line of the team, or you got to pair it with if you're really confident in the spread number.
Yeah.
And that's how you make, some really good returns on some minus money. You flip that minus money almost into the plus, depending on how much some of the juice is.
I've got 2 running backs. Erickson covered the wide receivers. I'm going to go with 2 running backs. I am a masochist. I'm going back to Gus Edwards. I did it last week. That line moved from plus 270 to 195, and it was all J.K. Dobbins. They even used Dobbins on his own drive in the red zone inside the 5, which that's where Gus Edwards lived and ate. Gus Edwards had more carries, but Dobbins was the explosive play. They're going against Carolina this week. Carolina, bad. Carolina, bad. Charger offense line, good. Running backs score touchdown. Gus Edwards, almost 2-1. I'm going right back to it. It's actually plus 170. And then the other running back, we are going to go pick on the Denver Broncos. And we were talking about this off air. Probably 2 plays you could play out of the Steelers. Justin Fields, I think, is 220, plus 235, plus 230 something you could do. But Najee Harris was the big bulk guy. Jalen Warren was kind of taken out of that. Denver still not good against the run. This is a really great spot when they get in the red zone for Najee Harris to score. He's almost 2-1. He's better odds than Gus Edwards. So plus 185 for Najee. And also my Gus Edwards. We're going back to it for both plays. Almost 2-1. Sorry, I don't have a Vele. My closest one to that is Austin Eckler, by the way, at almost plus 250. I just don't have a 750 for you. Kind of feeling that just a tiny bit. I keep going back to it just with Jaden Daniels, maybe them not wanting him to run and throwing the ball to him. He did have a 50% share, but he's not my official pick. It's Edwards and Najee. Joey, I love this last one, though.
Well, look, the last one, keeping it simple. It's Mike Evans at a game with a big total. As Erickson said, this is a game that's not going to disappoint, I don't think, in terms of points and in terms of quarterback play. You got two capable quarterbacks going at it, and I think it will go back and forth, which means more opportunities for Mike Evans at plus money, too. I couldn't believe this was plus money. Plus 120 is where you're getting this one. And I'm just going to run to it. I really am. I feel like Mike Evans just every year. I mean, he's so consistent. He's so solid. Last week, he looked great again with Baker Mayfield. They handled their business. Now they're going to go on the road. It's going to be a tough game for them. But you know, and I know, they love being the underdog. Baker Mayfield lives for this stuff. So give me Mike Evans at plus money, plus 125. Again, the best way to make money with this, I think, is to pair it with something else very simple. Najee Harris is a good one that Welsh mentioned, or that Pacheco one, which is, again, minus and probably a lock, or even the Derrick Henry one, too. That number should be pretty good.
How about Vele? Do that one.
I'm going to pass.
20 to 1.
Yuck it up, boys. Yuck it up.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the Bo Nix interception total, too, actually. That's another one, too, I should be.
Hey, Bo Nix has no fear. He's going to throw the ball. So.
He has no fear. Well, we'll see.
No talent.
You know what? You're right. He does have no fear. And that's exactly why I'm going to bet that prop. And I'm going to go over on the interceptions on him too. But for touchdown calls, again, Mike Evans. So just to recap for everybody, Evans, Pacheco for me, Edwards and Harris for the Welsh, and Erickson, Wan'Dale, and Devaughn Vele. So there you go. There it is, everybody. Who are your touchdown calls for the week? Drop your comments below. Call your touchdowns. Remember, we got a touchdown contest going on in our Discord too. You can get involved in, again, bettingpros.com/Discord, fantasypros.com/Discord. That's how you go join that. And you can track all of the bets with us, what we're in on. I was 6-3 last week, so a good start to the year. You can follow me at bettingpros.com/Joe/Welsh or /Erickson. That's the way to hang with all the pals here and place your bets. Good stuff, gentlemen. It's a good time to be betting on football. It's starting to get a little brisk out there in the Northeast. It feels like fall, and it feels like a good week 2 is on the horizon. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For the Welsh and Andrew Erickson, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids. Happy propping.